So when you've got a tree which has taken half a millennium to grow, there's a lot of value that comes with that. There's the social, historic value it represents. It's come from a time before Methesda existed, before the slate industry existed. And there's all kinds of wildlife value that tree supports nowadays. There's brown rock decay, there's white rock decay, there's different fungi that are living in the trunk. There's birds and bats that are using it. There's ferns and mosses growing on the branches. It's a habitat in itself. It's an entire nature reserve in a sense. I'm Jack Walmsley. I'm a biodiversity officer in Gwynedd, and I have sort of been overseeing the project on the Dderwen Meurig with the Gwynedd Nature Partnership. So it all came about when myself and some other council arborists just came to the park for a completely different matter, and we'd noticed that there was fungal growth coming out of the trunk of the tree, and there was deadwood in the crown. There was just a few things that we would commonly associate with obvious defects that we needed to look at further. In the first instance, after we recognised that there was something going on with the tree, we came out ourselves, the council team came out. We have access to decay detection equipment, so we did a lot of the surveys ourselves to start with, including sonic tomography, electrical impedance testing and resi drilling. And yeah, that just gave us a good idea of what was going on inside the tree. It sort of gave us a CAT scan of what was going on in the trunk, how the fungi were decaying it and how much soundwood was remaining. We then had vet cert specialists come out just to ratify that data, so they were able to go through our surveys with us, have a look at it, and really bring a strong sort of ancient and veteran tree perspective onto the whole situation and suggest appropriate management.
I'm qualified with veteran trees, so Jack asked me to come in specifically to deal with this tree here because it's so important. So working together, we've come up with this management strategy to manage the tree over a period of sort of 20 years or so. Looking from the outside, we can't tell what's going on inside the tree, so the equipment's using ultrasound rays to basically do like an MRI scan of the inside of the tree. That's not perfect in itself. It's got inherent issues, like if you've got bark inclusions and cracks, that hinders the sound waves. So then the black and red bleeds are a different set of equipment which uses electrical resistance to basically map where the water is in the tree. It's measuring the resistance and the conductivity. So by comparing the two images which are produced, called tomographs, I can get a much better idea of what's going on inside the tree, so I can make a better assessment of the condition of the tree and if there's anything needs doing to it. So we've done the tests and it shows that there is an area of advanced decay in the tree, but the decay, rather than being seen as a negative, is a positive. It's a feature. It's habitat for animals and critters, but there was a footpath underneath the tree, so there was a risk posed to people walking if pieces of branch broke off and sort of hit them. So we're putting a fence around to keep the people away from underneath the tree, and we're doing a phased reduction where we're gradually, over a long period of time, we're slowly pruning the tree about every 4 years to gradually make the tree smaller. And then as the tree responds to the pruning, it produces new growth lower down, which creating a new lower crown. So hopefully, the tree can be there for another 100 years or more.
Today we've been doing some work on this oak tree. It's been scanned at the base. It's quite hollow. It's got Pseudonotus striatus, which is a fungus which hollows out the stem and makes it stand like an Eiffel Tower. So its safety works really because it's a public park. So we're just doing some retrenchment pruning on some extreme limbs and just sort of trying to facilitate a natural process. So we're trying to mimic storm damage in the cuts as opposed to creating nice, smooth, target pruned cuts, which you'd maybe do in an arboretum or somewhere where you're trying to make the tree look pretty. We're just trying to simulate a natural process that's most likely to happen, but control the risk. So the cuts are jagged and fractured, and that's also got a benefit to the habitat as well. So some of the techniques we've been using is leaving longer stubs and letting branches rip, so just doing a top cut and then mashing up the ends to simulate a fracture wound. getting ropes around the branches and pulling them with just a little bit of a cut in, so that they're getting a nice tear on them to simulate some storm damage. And hopefully we'll get lots of frothy growth coming back onto those points, so that the tree can re-establish an internal crown.
To help the tree through the process of the crown reduction, obviously ancient veteran trees are a lot more delicate or sensitive than, say, a standard mature tree. There was a lot of root mediation work, which was just to mulch and aerate the soil and also break up any existing tarmac or hard surfaces, just to help the water get in and also to help the air and the oxygen exchange between the roots.
The first thing we're going to do here is removing the existing path. We have a slate crush path, which is just encouraging people to walk over the root plate, so we look to remove that and then make good the soil around it. There's also some tarmac around the base of the tree, so that would have been historic surfacing that's now no longer used, and it's covered in grass again. You wouldn't really know it was there until you see some of the edges, and obviously that's preventing water from getting down into the soil. So the first things we're going to do is, rather than removing the tarmac entirely, we're going to punch holes in it to let water go through and air to come through. There's an inherent risk in, if we were to dig up the tarmac with a machine, we might damage the roots below if there are surface roots, and sometimes the roots do sit just below surfacing. And then the sort of final step would be what's called radial trenching. So we use the air spade, the compressed air tool, to dig a series of trenches sort of in the spokes of a bicycle coming away from the stem. Fairly deep, as deep as we can get them, and into sort of looser soil. The compaction is normally right on the very top layer of the soil, and it's quite evident once you break through it, the soil starts to fluff up and pop up. So we'll do that all the way around, and then we will introduce some biochar mixed with compost into those trenches to try and revitalize the roots, and then we'll just mulch the entire area with wood chip, and that's just a preventative measure, and it also delineates the area of the roots where the roots are likely to be. So people know that, oh, that's a sort of protected area. It's really evident there's something going on there, and keeps competitive herbaceous weeds down as well. It's just nice to have in your toolbox. You've got another option. What are the soil conditions? Are they suboptimal? Can we optimize those without incurring a huge amount of cost? And this isn't a particularly costly intervention. Compared to taking down a tree of this size, it would sort of pale into insignificance.
We were very fortunate that the Gwynedd Nature Partnership was there to be able to fund this. So it's a Welsh Government pot of money which is there to sort of aid nature recovery. So in a sense, that funding was perfect for this project. We were able to protect and enhance a incredibly rare habitat, incredibly valuable habitat as well.
Initially, when I saw this tree, it just looked like a very, very old tree coming to the end of its life with decaying branches. And maybe traditionally, the root would have been very, very different to the route that we've taken now. The light bulb moment for me was seeing some electronic data which showed me and the partnership that this tree probably wasn't in such a bad condition as initially thought. And that piece of information was vital in order for us to make sure that we can do the right work at the right time in order to extend the longevity of this great tree.
To summarise, I think this has been a very valuable project, not only for the tree, but also for the people in Bethesda. They've obviously really value the tree just from the various site visits that we've done. They were coming to us asking us questions all the time. What's going on with the tree? And we're not going to cut it down, are we? That's one of the biggest things. I think that's an incredibly useful perspective to have, because it really justifies that these projects are worthwhile and people do want to see these trees protected. And that's what we've been able to achieve here. It's good to see that this tree is going to still be here in hopefully 10, 15, 100, 500 more years.